Hi everyone, my name is Jacob. The reason I came to this subreddit is simply because I had nowhere else to go. No one else would believe me. I'm getting off track. I live in a nice neighborhood in France. I will not disclose the name of the city for privacy reasons. I moved here about a year and a half ago, and honestly, life was going great. I had friendly neighbors who came to my house to introduce themselves as soon as I moved in. There was, however, one exception. My closest neighbor. He was reclusive to say the least, and he never really talked to me and had a big fence surrounding his house. We'll call him Tom. Tom was a weird guy ever since I moved in, but I honestly couldn't complain about him. He kept to himself and went about his business. Never bothered me or anyone else as far as I'm aware, and was never loud. That's why when one night I woke up at 3 a.m. to hear him screaming in his backyard, I thought he was in trouble. I went to put on my trousers, but the screaming suddenly cut out. And I don't mean stopped. It sounded like you press stop on a tape. So I thought nothing of it. However, I did have trouble sleeping that night, because my mind was wondering what could have happened. The next day, I went about my business. I woke up, had a cup of coffee and breakfast, and I headed off to work. I saw Tom in his front porch and I waved to him. And just like he always did, he half-heartedly waved back. I guess nothing is wrong after all. I mumbled under my breath. I was sure there was a good explanation for it. I came home from work more exhausted than usual. I took a shower, had dinner, and decided I was going to sleep early that night. I woke up once again at 3 a.m. on the dot, because of my neighbor's screams. Once again, I put on my trousers and the screaming stopped. This time, however, I was going to go to his house and confront him. He was disturbing my sleep after all. I went to his yard and I didn't see anything outside, and all the lights were off in the house. I was sure it was him screaming, however, so I decided to knock on his front door. "Hey Tom, could you come out for a second?" I said into the chilly night air. No response. "Tom, I've heard you screaming. I know you're not asleep," I said in a tone a bit more agitated than before. Once again, no answer. It was starting to get really cold, so I decided I was going to confront him when I headed off to work in the morning. The next morning, I did my morning routine, and as I was leaving the house, I was thinking of what I was going to say, without looking like an unfriendly neighbor that gets bothered by everything. I went to my driveway and looked over. This time, he wasn't on his front porch. I could, however, hear noises that sounded like digging in his backyard, just over the fence. I went to check it out. I was planning to confront him anyways, so it wouldn't hurt going over to his house to do so. It would give us more privacy anyways. I headed over, and as I expected, he was digging a hole in his backyard. It seemed like he was doing it for a pretty long time based on the size of the hole. Hey Tom, how's it going?" I asked in a friendly tone and got back grunts as a response. "I wanted to talk to you about the last 2 nights. You've been waking me up at 3 a.m. screaming, and it's not very nice. I have to get up early for work," I said, trying to sound as friendly as possible, with the irritation of being ignored building up. Tom finally stopped digging and turned to me. That was the first time I actually got a good look at his face, and he looked like he hasn't slept in days. "Okay," is the only response I got from him. Thinking he was gonna stop doing it, I simply turned around, saying goodbye, and left for work. I came home from work, and for some reason, my curiosity made me look in his backyard. I took a look at the spot where the hole was just this morning, but it was gone. And I don't mean covered up. It looked like it never even happened. Weird, I thought. But I just headed back to my house, watched some movies, and I got an idea to put my alarm 5 minutes before 3 a.m. and see if he does it again. And if so, how long does he do it? It sounded like the screams were the same length both times I've heard them. I woke up at 2:55 a.m. and I waited patiently. Without fail, exactly at 3 a.m., my neighbor starts screaming. I time it, and it lasted exactly 10 seconds. Was this some sort of recording? I said to no one in particular. It has to be. It would be very difficult, if not impossible, for a human being to be that precise every time. So I decided to time him 2 more nights. And sure enough, every time it starts at 3 a.m. and ends in 10 seconds on the dot. I was mostly confused by the sounds. I thought it had to be a recording or something. So I decided to mount a video camera on my house looking down at his backyard. It was still on my property and caught parts of my yard, so I wouldn't get in trouble with the law if he decided to go to such an extent. So I mount a camera, wait until 3 a.m. for the screaming to stop. I took out the tape to see what was on it, but I didn't see anything. It was too dark. He didn't use any lighting. Also, something I failed to mention. Every morning, without fail, he would dig a hole in the ground, and it would be gone by the time I got home. Well, the only way for me to see what's going on is to get the night vision extension for my camera. I thought to myself, and decided I'm going to just do that tomorrow on my way home from work. I went to the store, bought the extension, and headed back home, excited to see what my neighbor was actually doing, and to finally figure out why he was screaming or playing a tape of himself screaming. I got home, put on the extension, and waited for the time to hit 3 a.m. I heard screaming again, the same screaming I was getting used to hearing. It lasted 10 seconds as usual, but when I got my camera and played the video, I found something that would chill me to my bones. What I saw was my neighbor going into the spot where the hole usually was, pick up the grass patch that somehow fit perfectly to cover the hole up to the naked eye, and there was a wooden trapdoor under it. Without hesitation, he opened the hatch, got in, and exactly when 3 a.m. hit, I could hear the screams. They were coming from inside. The truly disturbing thing is what came out of the trapdoor. It was my neighbor, but he looked even weaker. He looked half dead almost. I had to know what was under that trapdoor, and I knew he left every Sunday to visit the church, so I waited until Sunday to make my move. When Sunday came around, I waited for him to head off to the church, and I slowly went to the spot which was now still covered with a grass patch, even though it would be a normal hole at this time of the morning usually. I lifted the patch, opened the hatch, and I saw nothing. It's just a normal hole. I felt silly for even trying to do it, but something told me there was more to it, so I decided I would open it at night. When he's finished with his screaming and take a look for myself what's inside of it. Night came around and I was prepared. I waited for his screams, and when they ended, I headed out for the hole in his backyard. In that moment, I did something I regret, and will regret for the rest of my life. I opened the hatch. What I saw in there is not explainable. Human minds are not meant to see or experience such things. I felt lost. At that moment, I screamed. I screamed for 10 seconds. No more, no less. What I saw in there was a void, not just darkness. I felt enveloped by it. I felt like I could see everything and nothing at the same time. I felt powerful, yet so weak. I finally understood why he looked so exhausted. The void needs a host to feed, and it needs to feed to exist. So I'm writing this story to ask someone to come help me dig a hole. 3:01 a.m. is getting closer.